Hello viewers. Jonathan McReynolds walked onto that stage at 35. No one expected the night to end in tears. The auditorium was full, the band was ready, and the crowd was already rising to their feet. But the moment the lights poured across his face, something inside him buckled. He lifted the microphone, opened his mouth to sing, and froze. What happened in the next few seconds would silence thousands. His voice cracked, his hands trembled, and then, as if his heart could no longer hold the weight, Jonathan McReynolds broke down in front of everyone. Tears streamed down his face, and with a trembling breath he whispered, "I can't pretend anymore." No one knew what he meant. But the truth he revealed next would send ripples through the entire gospel world. And the real shock? His confession was nothing anyone ever expected. Long before that emotional night, Jonathan was the quiet kid from Chicago who poured every unanswered question into music. Growing up in a single-parent home, he learned early how to be strong for others. But like many children who grew up too fast, that strength came at a cost. As a boy, music was his shelter. A cracked keyboard, a notebook full of scribbled lyrics, and a dream too fragile to speak out loud, that was the world he lived in. But the more he wrote, the more he uncovered a truth he didn't yet understand. Some gifts feel like blessings, others feel like responsibilities. He had no idea that the same gift the world would celebrate one day would become the same weight he struggled to carry. His rise to fame was almost accidental. A song shared, a voice discovered, and suddenly the shy musician found himself becoming the new face of modern gospel. And for a while, it felt beautiful. His lyrics were honest in a way the industry wasn't used to. He admitted doubts. He sang about fear. He wrote about grace in moments when grace felt far away. Fans connected instantly. Churches booked him non-stop. Awards followed one after another. Everywhere Jonathan went, people looked at him like he was the answer to their pain. But behind the smile and perfectly delivered performances, a storm was forming. Fame was loud. Expectations were louder. And behind the spotlight, the truth was far darker. Years before the breakdown, Jonathan began feeling cracks forming inside him. The travel, the pressure, the constant need to appear spiritually strong, it all started taking a quiet toll. Friends saw it first in the way he would fall silent after concerts, staring at the floor as if his thoughts were too heavy to carry. He kept telling himself he could handle it. But internally, he felt the expectations rising like a tide he couldn't outrun. Every new album had to dig deeper. Every lyric had to be profound. Every performance had to be perfect. Gospel fans adored him, but gospel culture can be unforgiving. One wrong word, one misstep, one rumor, and suddenly everything you built becomes a debate. Jonathan knew this. And the fear of disappointing everyone became a shadow that followed him everywhere. But no one knew what was coming next. Then came the hardest blow, a personal loss that he never publicly explained. Insiders described it as a betrayal or heartbreak from someone he trusted deeply, someone who had been a quiet pillar in his life. Whatever it was, it cut deeper than applause could heal. After that moment, his spark dimmed. He stopped writing freely. He withdrew from conversations about the future. And privately, he wondered if he was slowly losing himself. By the time he reached his mid-30s, he was running on emotional fumes, giving more than he had, pouring out from an empty cup. His breakdown didn't begin on stage. It began long before, in late-night prayers whispered through tears, in hotel rooms where silence felt suffocating, in the moments when he told himself, "I'll deal with this later," and later never came. As the concert approached, Jonathan rehearsed like always. He smiled for cameras like always. But internally, something fragile was tearing. Witnesses say that night he walked on stage looking different, tired, not in body, but in spirit. He greeted the crowd, adjusted his mic, and tried to begin. But the song wouldn't come. His mouth moved, but his heart refused. His hands shook. His breathing changed. And then he stepped back. Slowly, quietly, as if something inside him had finally collapsed after years of holding on. The room watched him crumble, and in the silence that followed, Jonathan whispered the words that shattered the illusion the world had built around him. "I've been pouring out more than I've had," he admitted. "Singing, encouraging, giving, while fighting battles no one sees." The audience listened, stunned. But the confession that followed next cut deeper. "I've been living in fear," he said. "Fear of failing. Fear of being disappointing. Fear that if people knew the real me, they wouldn't love me." The gasp that moved through the auditorium was heavy. He wasn't confessing a scandal. He was confessing humanity. And in gospel music, humanity can be just as terrifying to admit. Then came the revelation that explained everything. Jonathan looked out into the crowd with eyes that had cried for far too long. "I've started feeling disconnected from God," he whispered. "I told people to trust, to hope, to hold on, while I felt empty inside." Tears fell across the room, not just his. People realized they weren't watching a broken artist. They were watching a man confronting the truth he had been hiding even from himself. And this moment was only the beginning, because what Jonathan shared next, the final confession that would change the course of his life, didn't come from despair, but from awakening. He took a shaky breath and said, "Tonight, I'm choosing honesty over perfection." The crowd rose, not in applause, but in solidarity. His breakdown wasn't the end. It was the turning point. The moment he stopped carrying a world he was never meant to lift alone. In the months that followed, Jonathan stepped back from the noise. He sought healing. He reconnected with himself, with his purpose, with his faith, not through expectation, but through truth. And today, his legacy is deeper than music. It's the courage to admit that even those who lift others sometimes need to be lifted too. He didn't just live his story, he exposed it, healed through it, and invited the world to see the man behind the microphone.